the sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one, only one. I was an ordinary boy until I broke the rules. My life destroyed, life destroyed. Until I walk awake, scream my mind, I shout, the ground shakes. How much can I take? My mind will break. Will it break? Can I take? Can I be your superhero?
Woo! Good morning. Ask and you shall receive. We spoke about this case yesterday morning and everyone had an opinion. Love it. Love the chit chat. Agree to disagree. Would he be granted a bond? Seems we were all wrong. I will get to that. If you know, you know. Now I've got a little bone to pick with some people in Alberta, Canada. Anybody in here from Alberta, Canada? Don't worry, I will be getting hold of my Aunt Sarah. This storm that is coming through is called an Alberta Clipper. Now, you know the funky mood your old buddy Brooks gets in when she has to put on socks. Let me show you the hell that I'm about to have to go through. Okay, let me show you. The only time I like terms as in 6 to 10 inches, it better be because Greg's after me.
And those models keep changing. Something that you gave me a heads up about, which I so appreciate, is we're going to get more of a clear picture Wednesday, and today's Wednesday. So what can we anticipate and how are things changing from days past?
I mean, thankfully, we have all of this technology that we're able to start to see more of those details. And from monitoring this since Sunday, I've been able to see those changes. Now, what is consistent is those temperatures. It is going to be dangerously cold no matter what falls in your area. You don't want to be outside, especially as we get closer to Saturday and Sunday. Sunday night, those temperatures could dip below zero. And that is your actual temperature. And so that's something that we're going to be monitoring closely. But right now, we do have some rain in the mix on our radar, especially further towards the east.
It's going to be bad. Melanie, you're right there on the Texas border. You're going to get ice. Do you have a generator? They're talking about wide power outages in north of Dallas. But we're getting snow. That's going to really upset OJ. He doesn't like to be inconvenienced at all. Teresa going to be negative 18 there for the next 2 days. Good morning, Sister Karen. Good morning. Good morning. Melanie has a generator. What a Girl Scout. Melanie, were you ever a Girl Scout? You're always prepared. Always prepared. Good morning, Brooke Lantrip. How are you? She said, we are getting lots of snow too. Where are you, girlfriend? Radio God said she's getting buried in North Carolina on Friday. So is Angel P. So is Angel P. We're just going to have to stick together and, hell, maybe just do some member shows or something like that to cure the boredom. But in the meantime, let's say good morning to Mike, because it is hump day. I have on pink. Do you?
Oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
It's hump day. Woo-hoo-hoo. And Chrissy sent me this morning. Get ready to piss your pants. Will you piss your pants with me? Because it's hilarious.
Welcome to North Shore, where the rules are petty and the claws are sharp. On Wednesdays, we wear pink, or we get hissed out of the cool cat circle. One little burn book, and suddenly everybody's fur is flying. It's not drama. It's a full-on meow down. Mean cats. Welcome to North Shore, where the rules are petty and the claws are sharp. On Wednesdays, we wear pink, or we get hissed out of the cool cat circle. One little burn book, and suddenly everybody's fur is flying. It's not drama. It's a full-on meow down. Mean cats.
That was awesome, Chrissy. That was the first thing I woke up to. That was awesome. Well, let's take a second and tell everybody good morning. And we're going to talk about Timothy Busfield because I was watching it yesterday and I was shocked. All right, for those that missed the show yesterday, I'm going to give you a quick recap. Two children, they are twins in New Mexico. They were in a show called The Cleaning Lady on, I don't know if it's FX or Fox. I've never watched it. Anyhow, they were recasted. They weren't needed anymore, or they didn't do a good job. I don't know. Such is what we call the biz. Okay? The biz. Turns out that the mother and the father of the two children have huge financial problems. And the mother was heard saying, I'm not worried about this because I'm going to get even. No one thought anything about it, but now the two children told a therapist that they were molested by Timothy Busfield. Always believe the children, because whether Timothy Busfield did this or not, which, by the way, would be horrible, there is some abuse going on. So it's either from Timothy Busfield or it's from the parents. Okay? Now, when they spoke to the police, they told the police, no, this did not happen. And here we are. U.S. Marshals raided their New York house, him and Laura Ingalls Wilder, and it got even wilder yesterday in court. I'm talking courtroom fireworks.
Will continue to be held without bond.
The West Wing star in an orange jumpsuit faced the New Mexico judge this afternoon. His appearance lasted about a minute and he did not address the court. Busfield will remain in detention without bond. His next hearing will be held within 5 days. This morning, Busfield's attorney claimed he passed an independent polygraph test, but just hours before, a stunning new filing as police identified another alleged victim, a Sacramento girl who claimed the actor.
If you missed the show yesterday, you can go catch it on the replay because, yes, another person came out saying that she was essayed by Timothy Busfield. And her father, who was a therapist, didn't report it to the police. Instead, he took a check. Okay? And now here we are.
Sexually abused her when she was 16. Adding to the drama, less than an hour after Busfield turned himself in to authorities, this was the chaotic scene 2,000 miles away. The Daily Mail Plus, with the video as officers raided and rammed open the door of the upstate New York home he shares with his wife, actress Melissa Gilbert.
The raid on Busfield's New York house looks like a coincidence of timing. It looks like the marshals and local authorities got there too late because he had already left.
What is the secret to this marriage? Mutual respect We have the same values and ideas.
Melissa is standing by her husband, and in a statement, her rep said, quote, during this period, her focus is on supporting and caring for their very large family.
And you've got grandchildren now. Grandchildren now. I have 8 grandchildren.
And we're learning more about the beloved cabin, complete with a chicken coop that was raided by authorities.
This is our little house in the Catskills.
You are finding yourself in the Catskills, so upstate New York, and rehabbing this cottage cabin that you like to call the cabbage.
The cabbage.
The couple brought the rundown property in 2019 for $98,000. Melissa told us it was their safe place during the pandemic, and it reminded her of her childhood shooting Little House on the Prairie.
I love communing with nature, and I always wanted to have that in my life. And when I met and married Tim Busfield, my extraordinary husband, luckily we found this rundown little hunting cabin in the middle of nowhere that had been sealed up for decades and was musty and smelly. But we were able to turn that into a safe place to be, and literally made it inhabitable by Thanksgiving, Christmas of 2019. And we were locked down on March 13th.
Now, there's a lot coming out from the state, and there's a lot coming out from the defense. There's a lot coming out. And they're going to have a full-on trial to find out the truth. Okay? Either way, Melissa Gilbert and Timothy Busfield, their careers are pretty much over. This is going to have to cool way down. Because while common sense people are totally done with cancel culture, Holly Weird isn't. Okay? Holly Weird isn't. Because you know what they say? You tell a lie, it makes it halfway around the world before the truth has time to put its pants on. There's too many things going on here. Way too many things. The stage mother, she is called the stage mother, was furious, and she made her anger known. Okay? They had taken out obvious, I'm going to say, paycheck advances on their children. So, like, right now, there's a piece of the puzzle we're missing. But either way, something has happened to these children, whether it's that they are being exploited and extorted by their parents, or Timothy Busfield did what they told the therapist. All right, let's get to a little recap. Get ready. Get ready.
The court will find and rule as follows. The question is whether or not the state has proven by clear and convincing evidence that there are no release conditions that would reasonably protect the safety of any other person or the community. It's broken down into the 3-part analysis articulated in State versus Groves, and in that analysis, the court considers the factors enumerated in Rule 54906 as required by State versus Anderson.
Okay. The judge heard all 2 hours of the state and the defense. I couldn't keep my mind straight listening to all of it, because the defense attorney, she was a bear cat in a sack, let me tell you. She went through the complaint line by line by line by line. She refuted everything. But remember, as we spoke about yesterday, 70 plus letters were sent to this judge. Now wait to see what happens. And I think we know when it comes to celebrities and cases in New Mexico, they seem to fall apart real easily. And that's because of politics. I hate to tell you. Because they want to keep New Mexico open to the entertainment industry. So if they're putting celebrities behind bars, it's not a good look. They don't like it.
The first question is whether or not the information proffered carries sufficient indicia of reliability to be worthy of consideration. I do find that the state's 6 exhibits and the defendant's 28 exhibits and the court's 2 exhibits and the testimony offered today are reliable for purposes of this decision. The next question is the dangerousness question, the extent to which that information indicates that the defendant may likely pose a threat to the safety of others if released pending trial. I'll back up and note that probable cause was found by the Metropolitan Court judge. We're not set for a preliminary hearing today. I do find that that is sufficient for a probable cause finding for today's purposes. So as to the dangerousness question, based on the nature and circumstances of the present offense, noting that this is a crime where the allegations involve criminal sexual contact of minor children in the genital areas, I do find that is inherently dangerous. So I'm satisfied based on those that the state has proven that Mr. Busfield does pose a danger to the safety of others. As to the last question, whether there are any potential pretrial release conditions that would reasonably protect the safety of others, I'll work my way through the F6 factors, first adopting my findings about the nature and circumstances of the present offense. I'll move on to...
Okay, so the judge is talking about danger to society. So he's explaining the charge, okay, which is criminal sexual offense to a minor to the genitals. Whoa. As if we needed it spelled out. So to most courts, they would be like, look, that's enough for me. You're at least going to have an ankle monitor, okay? Bamacat. Melissa said she compensated the victims, but why if he didn't do anything to the victims? That's what I said yesterday. If somebody made this story up about my husband or my son, the last thing I would do is pay their asses. I'll be like, oh, hell no, we're going to the rodeo. We are going to the rodeo. I'm not talking about watching the clowns. We're going straight to the bullpen. We are going to the rodeo. We're going to get down. No one would get a red cent. You know why? It stinks of guilt. It stinks of guilt. So again, he's talking about the dangerousness. Wait till you hear the conditions of his release. And I don't know where you guys stand. Do you think that the children were coached to make this up? Or do you think he truly did it? You let me know.
The weight of the evidence. Now, Ms. Brandenburg-Koch is right. It's important to acknowledge the nature of sexual assault cases, and delays in reporting, especially from minor alleged victims, are fairly common. That sort of sexual abuse often occurs in the dark. This situation is a little different in that the allegations involve the defendant being alleged to have committed these acts on a film set. Now, the defendant's presentation, the affidavits from a number of people who worked on that film set, the independent investigation.
Okay, this is actually very important, okay? Very important, because this is on a film set, and many people have been questioned by the police, been questioned by the FBI. They have wrote letters to the judge that there was many people around, and that Timothy was never alone with these children. Matter of fact, didn't really spend hardly any time with them, didn't even really know so much who they were. And in these letters, and it could all be to cover up for Timothy. I don't know these people. They said that the mother, once recasted, said, don't worry, I will get even, which suggests revenge.
Performed by the law firm hired by Warner Brothers. The testimony offered today do not corroborate the allegations offered by the alleged victims in this case. Now, while true, the statement from those children to law enforcement initially and expressly denied that anything occurred, the children then subsequently reported these things. That's not uncommon. As it stands today, based on the limited information I have in front of me, I'll characterize the weight of the evidence against the defendant as neutral at this point in time. As to the defendant's history and characteristics, as included or reflected in Court's Exhibit 1, this defendant exhibits 0 criminal history, no misdemeanor or felony history. The state has brought forth a number of allegations over the last 30 years, something of a pattern involving allegations of this defendant committing some sort of sexual contact against post-pubescent women. Now, these allegations have not been vetted by the judicial system for various reasons. There being a civil settlement in one of those, a declined prosecution, or no action taken on the exchange of the defendant engaging in therapy. I understand that given the media attention to this case, that
Boy, that made my stomach do somersaults. When instead of going to the police, this pattern of behavior, people took money for therapy instead of prosecution. So keep that in your hat. And the judge is saying it right there. Instead of reporting a crime to the police, these families took money for therapy. He's reading it right there.
more people may come forward with other allegations supporting this pattern. But at this point in time, it's difficult for the court to put too much weight into those allegations as they've not been vetted by the judicial system. I'm concerned about the allegations of this defendant using his position of power on the film set to advance his own personal motive. But the affidavits offered by other people working on the film set do not show that Mr. Busfield has used or abused that position of power. With regards to the nature and seriousness of the danger posed, I'm very mindful of the higher court's guidance in the Begay case in weighing this defendant's risk of reoffending. But given the lack of a pattern involving children in this case, I think that can be remedied through different conditions of release. For factor E, I don't find that there's been sufficient presentation that this defendant may commit new crimes if released pending trial. There's no evidence of a pattern of criminal conduct. There are no similar allegations involving children in his past. There's no evidence of non-compliance with prior court orders. Rather, this defendant self-surrendered and submitted himself to this court's jurisdiction, demonstrating compliance with the court order for his arrest. There's not been any prior pretrial detention finding. So on the balance, I cannot find that the state has proven by clear and convincing evidence that there are no release conditions that would reasonably protect the safety of the young person in the community. So I am denying the state's motion. I'll take care of that order. That'll be published tomorrow. So Mr. Busfield, I'll set the following conditions of release. You're authorized for release on your own recognizance with the conditions that you appear in all future court settings.
No, no money, no bail, no bond, no nothing. You are released on your own recognizance. What does the judge know that we don't know? Obviously, a ton. He's been there since, I think, January 14th, and he was released yesterday. You're released on your own recognizance. That means no ankle monitor, that means we don't hold your money to make sure you come back. Let's face it, that's what bond and bail are for. That's what it's there for. You have a bondsman or you put up the whole bond yourself to make sure you come back to court. But in this case, nothing. And there are many states that have this no bail reform. There's a few of them that do that. But those are for more petty crimes. This is not a petty crime. This is the sexual abuse of 2 minor children. This is not a petty crime.
You're not violating laws. You'll be supervised by pretrial services here in Albuquerque at a level 2. I'm not going to prohibit your travel. I understand you may not live here, but you will need to report to pretrial services here. You're not to possess any firearms or dangerous weapons. You're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You must notify the court of your address. You're not to have any contact with the alleged victims or their families, and you're also not to discuss the case with any witnesses. That's what the attorney said.
Man, look at Laura Ingalls Wilder. Timmy's coming home, but we can't drink until after the trial. She's going, well, I can, he can't. But hey, who would know? Who would know, right?
Their investigators are there to do, and we can't have you tamper with any of that. And then you need to maintain weekly contact with your attorney in this case. So, Mr. Busfield, do you have any questions for me about what any of those conditions mean?
No, sir.
Okay. So, attorneys, I'll take care of that order tomorrow. Is there anything else the state would request, Ms. Brandenburg?
Good. I would ask for no contact with children under the age of 18.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No unsupervised contact with any minor children in this case. Mr. Dodd, any other conditions you'd request?
No, Your Honor, I would ask just if the court can get that filed through your TCAA today so that I can.
Oh, this conditions of release? Yeah.
Yes.
I've already, yeah. That'll be filed today.
Thank you.
I'll take care of the full detention order tomorrow. And so with that, anything else, state
Not at this time, Your Honor.
and defense?
No, Your Honor, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. We'll be adjourned.
We were all wrong. I'm like, is he going to get bond? Some people said, no, they're going to keep him there. Some people said, oh, yeah, there's going to be a bond. We were all wrong. They didn't keep him there, and there's no bond. He is released on his own recognizances. I mean, telling him, don't do drugs and don't drink. What? I mean, seriously, like anybody would know. Don't contact the witnesses. No problem. But his wife already did. Trace on the case said the system should have kept the children's identity private. Well, they did. They used initials. And it takes 2 seconds to look at the credit of the show to figure out who they are. 2 seconds. You can thank TMZ for that. You can thank People Magazine for that. It takes 2 seconds to look at the Wikipedia of the show and see who RL and SL are. Amanda. So does that mean the families can be charged with not reporting a crime? Depends on the crime. I've yet to see somebody that didn't. Well, it does happen from time to time. We did a show yesterday afternoon. There's a grandma in jail for not reporting what happened to her grandkids. So, but will Sacramento, California do it? Has a statute run out? Probably so, because this woman is grown now. That's the truth. That's the truth. All right. Now let's look at some of this from the trial yesterday. This is his defense attorney. We already know the state's case. We know the state's case. We know that the mother asked one of the twin boys if anything happened to him on the set of a sexual nature, and she asked if Tim Busfield did it. And from there, the children went to therapy. Then when questioned by the police, they said no. But that's children for you. That's children for you. To me, the guilty look is offering money to anyone that's lying about your family. I get some people that are rolling in the dough think money can just make it go away, but it truly doesn't. It truly doesn't.
That's based on the presumption of innocence that Mr. Dodd spoke about earlier, and it's echoed by Article 2, Section 13 of the New Mexico State Constitution, and of course, Rule 5409. This is in addition to the principle articulated in Gerstein versus Pugh that an accused may not be held absent a finding of probable cause. And Your Honor, I recognize that there's a finding of probable cause here by the Metropolitan Court judge signing the affidavit. But I actually want to encourage Your Honor to, in considering all of the evidence that was not available to that judge at that time, all of the pieces that were misconstrued in the complaint, as Mr. Dodd said, that does not appear to have been a neutral and neutral piece of evidence, I would actually encourage Your Honor to keep it in the back of your mind. Is there really even probable cause in this case? But setting that aside, what we in this state have required, have asked and required of the state of New Mexico is that they must prove both dangerousness and that no conditions, no combination of conditions could keep the community safe, that they have to prove that by the exacting standard of clear and convincing evidence. Now, as Your Honor is aware, there's a lot of evidentiary latitude in these hearings, but that's not a reduction of their burden. All of that evidence, whether it's by a proffer, criminal complaint, things that wouldn't be admissible at trial.
Got some questions. Little Black Bear, not familiar with this case. Is this person going to get off? Don't know. They haven't had the trial yet. He was just released yesterday. He was arrested last week in Albuquerque, and they haven't had the trial yet. So I don't know. I do not know. Ooh, Lisa A. hating on Megyn Kelly. B. Harley, you are so right. You are so right. Just because the parents are exploiting the children, which in my opinion should be a crime all its own, doesn't mean this didn't happen. I think the guilty look on the Busfield side is the openness to send money for therapy, or as Melissa Gilbert said, whatever pain has been caused. The guiltiness on the children's parents' side was their repeated threats of revenge. It's going to be very hard for a jury to decide. It's going to be really hard because there's a lot of witnesses that are ready to rock and roll and talk about the stage mother complex. He calls it playfully touching. He calls it tickling. Get your fucking hands off the kids. And what I want to know, where were the handlers? Where was the stage mom? Where were they? Where were they? He's not the babysitter. He's the director of the show.
It still needs to be, according to the rule, reliable proof. It still needs to be reliable. And our Supreme Court in Mascareno versus Hadel has described that burden, clear and convincing, as evidence, and quote, Your Honor, quote, evidence that instantly tilts the scales in the affirmative when weighed against the evidence in opposition. The state's nowhere near close to such an instant tilt. Not even close. And Your Honor, I'm not going to rehash every single one of the 5409 factors, although I will touch on them throughout my argument, but please let me know if you have a question about any one of them. But the state bases its motion on two: the nature and circumstances of the offense charged and the history and characteristics of the defendant. We just heard Ms. Brandenburg address the defense's concern that the state of New Mexico, both in public statements and now here in court, has acknowledged that.
Get to the good shit.
But now, Your Honor, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about these exhibits that the state has characterized as largely irrelevant, which I frankly find incredible. This evidence was compiled, as Mr. Dodd said, not by the state, not through some nefarious means by the defendant who's been in custody, but through a legal team, and mostly through people reaching out to us. Because again, this has been all over the global media. This is no secret. I don't know why this evidence is not portrayed in the criminal complaint. I don't know why this evidence has not been considered by the state of New Mexico. I'm frankly surprised, given the weight of this evidence. I'm going to say it outright, Your Honor. There is not a universe in which the state has the evidence, and we've received their discovery. We received it on Friday, as you know. There's not a universe that they could prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's impossible. So the fact that we're here, again, I feel like we're in an incredible situation right now. So what this evidence shows is, one, the state's witnesses aren't credible. And although Ms. Brandenburg-Koch said that that's not relevant to the detention inquiry, yes, it is. Of course it is. Because again, Your Honor has to base your decision on reliable proof. Well, if the allegations aren't credible, if the witnesses aren't credible, it's not reliable. The other thing that this pile of evidence shows is that the complaint itself isn't credible, meaning the actual four corners of the complaint. There are so many omissions, so many independent people coming forward to say, I've been misrepresented in there. And again, it's not, nobody's seeking these people out. And then finally, it shows that the allegations aren't credible. And I heard Ms. Brandenburg-Koch say a couple of times that the defense argument, the allegations aren't credible, doesn't hold water because the boys have never said that this happened alone. That's not true. That's not true. Again, this is a case that has had evolving allegations. But as we see in Defense's Exhibit I, Your Honor, the second Warner Brothers independent investigation, which directly addresses the allegations.
The independent investigations that Holly Weird does do not sit well with me. That is a tactic that they use to go back to the families and say, we've done our own investigation and nothing happened. It is a common tactic. Why would you need to do an independent investigation? You're talking about children, FFS. Why wouldn't you just have a real detective do it? You have an independent polygraph. Piss on that. I can't stand polygraphs anyway. And you have a law firm that surmises nothing happened to these children. Something happened to them, but what? Are their parents truly exploiting them for money? And they're coming up with this in order to get their money? Because mark my words, they will file a civil suit. They will file a civil suit. It will happen. And Melissa Gilbert, she fully sees it coming down the turnpike. She knows. Hence why she reached out and said, I'm willing to pay for the therapy. Therapy seems to be a pattern word for her and Timmy. It really does. Because any child that says he did something to them, next thing you know, the checkbook is open and they pay for, air quotes, therapy. And depending on the allegations is how many zeros it gets. So here we go. He will go to trial. The therapist will testify. The police will testify, saying that the boys flat out said this didn't happen. What is the jury going to say? The children will more than likely testify. And then that's going to trip everything up. Because in New Mexico, over the age of 10, a child can testify.
Kieran, but the state did not include or reference in its criminal complaint, specifically says, and I'll just go ahead, I'm going to skip forward, and I quote, Your Honor, from, again, that's Defense's Exhibit I, that the allegation was that Mr. Busfield had isolated the twins, quote, out of sight and sound, quote. That's the allegation. The fact that these allegations have evolved only makes them less credible. That actually, no, it wasn't out of sight and sound. It was where everybody could see it. It was.
This is where the coaching and the grooming is going to come in. Because as she goes through this, and we're only going to watch part of it, I'm telling you, there's more to see. The allegations have changed over time. Now, we've all heard the term out of the mouths of babes, okay? Children will tell you how they feel. Children will tell you when you look ugly. Children will tell you when they don't like dinner. I think what was odd to the forensic child psychologist was the evolution of how things are changing. And it wasn't a specific, like there's nothing specific. And again, something has happened to these kids. Do they have abusive parents, or are they abused by Timothy Busfield? I don't know. The problem is their name is in the credits. They'll probably never get a job ever again in Hollywood because of their parents. True story. True story. They probably never will again. You know where I found that out from? Melissa Gilbert. Because years ago, she said in Hollywood, if a child actor complains about how they're treated, you can forget it. They'll never use you again. Must be the code of conduct, because Macaulay Culkin said the same thing.
So I just want to put that out there now. I want to start with the criminal complaint. And Your Honor, I'd like to use my microphone here. I'd like to play for Your Honor Defense Exhibit Z. This is an audio-only clip of the first interview that police had with the boys in 2024. And Ms. Brandenburg-Koch has said, it's not good practice to be asking kids questions before a safe house. I agree. And what this evidence shows is that there's been a good year and a half of their parents coaching them along before the safe house. So I agree.
She said it, not me. Because the events keep changing. I don't know the truth. I don't know the truth. I do know that my moral compass says I don't want these children blamed. I don't want anyone saying those kids are just fucking bratty liars, like they said about Judy Garland, Lindsay Lohan, and other child actors. Either they have been abused by their agent and their parents, or they were abused by Timothy.
This is in the beginning. This is the first time they speak. And so this starts with VL, Your Honor. And assuming that my technological prowess is not terrible, I'm going to play it for you right now.
And you know what's right and wrong, right?
Hold on, we're going to start over. And obviously, I'm not playing the whole interview for Your Honor.
And you know what's right and wrong, right? You know where people can't touch, where people can't do. Yeah, you know that, right? Does Tim ever do that?
No, he's never touched me.
Never touched you?
Yeah.
In like, your private areas, right?
Yeah.
Never did that?
Never.
Okay.
Let's go on, Your Honor, to Defense Exhibit AA. This is 5 minutes later, separate. The boys were separated. The same police officer, this time speaking to SL, out of the presence of his brother.
So, you know what's right and wrong, right?
Yeah.
You know no one could touch your private areas?
Yeah, but he doesn't touch them.
Doesn't touch your private parts? Okay.
That's not, Your Honor, a failure to disclose. That's an express denial. And the officer followed up just to make sure he didn't touch your private areas, because the conversation before.
Now, according to TMZ, there were other conversations. Now, not this case, another case, Dr. Drew, love his hair. He explained that children, if they are truly coached or groomed, they know they're not going to get in trouble for lying to a therapist. But inherently, they know it's wrong to lie to the police. So they'll tell the truth to the police, but possibly lie to the therapist. I'm all mixed up here. I'm all mixed up. Now, let's just say that they truly were coached by the parents. That is the defense. Okay? That's the defense. They have been coached by these broke-ass parents that were doing nothing but cashing these kids' checks. That's their defense. The question is, why did any story change? Other children had been coached, as in Sophie Long. That was a big, big case. Her story changed and changed and changed and changed and changed, and that's how they knew it was coaching. These are kids, man. Don't be messing with their heads. Pat's messing with my head. Who got a Crime Lines and Lies membership? And remember, this investigation has been going on since 2024. So it took the better part of a year to bring this in front of a judge. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I personally think there is a pattern with him. I don't even know why you would pay off somebody that lied about you. I really don't. I really don't. The thing is, the other people that have accused him are girls around the age of like 14, 15, 16, which is Barfarama. Don't even think about it. And then suddenly we have boys. It almost makes me wonder if the mom didn't know about these allegations and thought, I'm going to get my kids to say it. Like I said, my mind's going everywhere. But either way, these kids have been abused somewhere, somehow. They have.
I'll express to Your Honor, the conversation before that was, does Tim tickle you ever? And they said, well, my shoulder sometimes. Do you like it? I kind of like it. I kind of don't like it. And then they went into the conversation about the private parts. This was not a failure to disclose. This was an express denial. And I want to talk, Your Honor, about the medical records that the state has referenced. We did not submit them as exhibits, but given the state's argument today, I would like to read a couple of pieces from it. And that is because the state's made the assertion that SL reported to his therapist unprompted and, not to parents. It didn't come from parents. And what we see from the records is that's not accurate. It's not accurate. This complaint is not credible. This is from, I'm just going to read a portion. I'm going to read a few portions, but this one is from one of the very first notes. And in the room are SL, his father, Ronald Rodas, and the therapist. These are her notes. And I quote, "Father then told client that client needs to trust therapist and feel safe to talk about the abuse so that client and family can heal." Only after that did then SL say, okay, well, here's the abuse. This was not a spontaneous disclosure that happened with someone he trusted. This was in the presence of looking at dad. And the reason we know that is because there are other medical records that say, there are so many things, and I want to make sure I've got the right one for Your Honor. Okay. There's an allegation in the complaint that SL was having nightmares, suffering from PTSD from this abuse. Well, what the medical records show is actually he wasn't having nightmares. When his father is not in the room with him, SL tells the therapist that he's waking up at night, and I quote, "waking up at night due to being too hot or too cold." His father tells that client is having a nightmare when client wakes up, but client does not remember it. multiple times throughout the medical records. Multiple times, SL tells the therapist, I wake up because I'm hot. And then the therapist says, well, why don't you tell your dad that you're not having nightmares, that you're just hot? And then this is what he says to that. Client, quote, client feels the need to please his father and at times is scared to tell him what's going on due to fears of disappointing him. These aren't credible, non-exact.
Okay, so when the kids did talk to the original therapists, they had nothing but issues with their parents. So then they get another therapist, and then that's when these allegations came out. Okay? SL actually told the therapist he was scared of his father. Again, I am always on the side of victims. I'm always on the side of victims, unless they're bold-faced liars that are adults. Kids are totally different. Kids are totally different. Someone is playing mind games with these children, because this investigation went on from basically a week after they got recasted. Basically a week. And in that week, when the mother was told, we'll have another part for them, we're just not sure when. She called every day and every day and every day. Had the agent call every day and every day and every day. Too many people that were not in the same room heard the same thing from her. She's going to get even. It's just not a good look on either side. It is not a good look on either side. When you have to go to multiple therapists to get the answer you want to prosecute somebody, that's if that's what really happened, that's a real beat move, man. That's a real beat move. If that's truly what the mom and dad did, because you know what you did? You have sunk Timothy Busfield's career. He's been fired by his agent. No studio will work with him. Cancel culture is real in Hollywood. And you've tanked your kids' career, because nobody is going to want to work with your kids, because guess what? They're scared. They're scared. They're not scared of the kids. They're scared of the parents. It's going to be really interesting how this comes out. It's going to be real interesting. Either way, I'm going to stick with it right now. Those children have been abused somehow. Either it's from the parents or something happened with Timothy. And I want to know, where was stage mom and stage dad when Timothy was tapping him on the shoulder and playing Tickle Monster? Where were they? Kids are not going to be left alone with the director of the film. I'd have flipped my shit. My kid wouldn't even be recasted. There would be no question. My kid would be off the set altogether. We wouldn't wait until after the recasting and go, did he do something to you? No. Fucking playing Tickle Monster with my kid, we'd be done. That's it. Bye. Gone. You get your hands off my kid.
Exaggerated allegations. These are manufactured allegations. This complaint omits all of that history. But not only that, we know that it also misconstrues conversations with its own witnesses. I'd like to play for Your Honor Defense Exhibit S. This is a voicemail left, not solicited, left to the Busfield's family's personal attorney. This is a voicemail from her.
Hi, this is Danielle V. Hill. I'm reaching out regarding Timothy Busfield. I noticed that I was in the police reports for his warrant, and I was not very happy with how the detective twisted and used my words and just picked and choose what he wanted to put into that report. I don't feel comfortable with a man sitting in jail right now when I know what I said, and that's not everything or twisted words into the report. So I would like to be able to speak with someone about that because this has gotten kind of out of hand. So thank you. My phone number is 505.
We won't play her phone number for everybody, Your Honor. She's not the only one. States and
Play the phone number for me. I want to call her up. I want to know how her words got twisted when she was on the set. I want to know how her words got twisted.
Defendant's Exhibit, I keep saying states, Defendant's Exhibit L is an affidavit of Kristen Carr. She says the same thing. She says that the detective omitted from the criminal complaint things that she thought were crucial. That set teachers never left the boys unsupervised, that there were always 20 to 30 people in the room, and that she never saw the kids ever alone or somewhere where other people could not observe. But now let's get to the crux of it, because this is something Ms. Brandenburg Coke.
Susan said, I know who she is, talking about Sarah Gilbert, you know, the chick that was on the talk. We all know her as Darlene from Roseanne. I'm surprised she hasn't said anything either, because we all know that she puts her 2 cents in on everything. I'm shocked she hasn't said anything. But it's always been kind of, I'd say, speculated, tabloid speculation, that her and her sister do not get along. And I think we all know that Sarah is kind of she's kind of known to backstab people. She might actually be enjoying this, if you want to know the truth. B. Hartley said that's what happened to Macaulay Culkin, Feldman, and Corey Haim. Yeah. I couldn't imagine putting my children in that situation. And it's going to be interesting when it gets to trial, because broke-ass mom and broke-ass dad are going to have to take the stand, and they're going to have to explain, well, where were you when your children, one at a time, were alone with Timothy? Were you looking for your children? Everyone's going to have to be on the stand and take an oath. And there's going to be a lot of people. And at this point, there's no reason for anyone to cover for Timothy. You know why? Because he's canceled. He's not going to direct anything now. Nobody's going to read any of his scripts. No one's going to hire him as an actor. No one's going to. So at this point, they have no reason to cover for him, because he is no longer what you would call their employer. That's done. That's over. He doesn't even have an agent. Poof, gone. It's over. They don't need to cover for him. They have nothing to get out of him. The rest of his life, him and Melissa will live off royalties. 30-something, West Wing, the cleaning lady, maybe. Warner Brothers might take it all, depending on the outcome of the trial. Little House on the Prairie. You know what I mean.
Talked about the parents here. The parents. The issue is not that people with a criminal history cannot be the victims of crimes. That's not what this is. That's not, oh, there was a DWI here, or there was a conviction back there. That's not what this is. I think I'll say it the most simply. These 2 parents have a documented history. They're con artists. Actual con artists. Ronald Rodas.
Now, this is when it gets interesting, because the children's parents are, I'm going to go ahead and use her words. I'm going to use her words. They are known con artists, okay? They've done everything from check kiting to trying to get old people to give them the title to their homes, knowing they were on their deathbed, okay?
Ronald Rodas, Defendant's Exhibit A, the DOJ's press release. DOJ's press release after he was convicted of wire fraud, defrauding 1,500 homeowners during the mortgage crisis through a sham law firm of over $6 million, served 3 years in prison.
She's talking about the father. During the mortgage crisis, yes, they were scamming old people. This is the father of the twins, okay? Remember, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And I'm sitting on my couch and you don't hear me singing right now.
And was disbarred in the state of California. And this is what the DOJ says, and I quote from Defendant's Exhibit A. It is an unfortunate truth that people often take advantage of a crisis for personal gain. The Rodas Law Group was among the worst type of scammers, trying to take advantage of homeowners already experiencing profound heartache in the face of potential foreclosure. I didn't make up the word scammer. That came from the Department of Justice. And Angel LaSalle was no better. Defendants Exhibit E and F, that's a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit. Again, not just some unrelated idea. This is about stealing. This is about defrauding people. Had a Bentley, sold it for $90,000, didn't turn over the title, had the car unlawfully repossessed, and then fraudulently traded it in for a Porsche 911 in her mother's name.
Okay, the Bentley that the dad had, he was helping people. He had a heyday during COVID, by the way, too. The Bentley, he never bought. Okay, but he sold it for $90,000. Do you know what a Bentley goes for? Anybody? I know Two Boston Moms has one for every day of the week. These are two $300,000 cars. He sells this Bentley for $90,000 and says, I'll get you the title later. Keeps the $90,000 and claims this old woman with dementia stole it from him. Okay? This shit is getting deep. I need boots up to my hips. But like Susan always says, both can be true. It could be that the parents are real pieces of shit and that Timothy Busfield could have honestly done something too. Pat Kay has a Bentley. It's her weekend car. During the week, she drives her Rolls Royce. Oh, and the scams and the frauds with these parents go on and on.
And that's in addition to a domesticated judgment for over $75,000, well, including penalties, but a $75,000 judgment for bad checks written at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Again, these are unrelated. So why? I mean, I guess the question here is, if the boys said that this never happened, why are we here? And we're here, it's documented through these witnesses. We're here because those boys lost their role. They lost their role, and exhibit after exhibit talks about, we've got Defendant's Exhibit I, the Warner Brothers investigation, which describes the star of the show, Elodie Young, who was close with the family, saying that after Ronnie and Angel found out that their kids would be recast, actually used the words, they would get revenge on Tim Busfield. We've got the affidavit of Chris Ford, Defendant's Exhibit K, which says the same thing, that he, while out at a dinner with an actress and the family, they were upset. They were visibly upset that the boys wouldn't be back on the show. And same thing, she said she'd get him, quote, have his ass, unquote. This entire criminal complaint.
Now, why would a mother whose children have been cast in a show and then get recast, why would she go to dinner with people and say, either way, I'm going to have his ass? Why? And remember, they had taken many advanced payments off of their children's work. That's a lot like Macaulay Culkin's father. Macaulay Culkin, he hates his father. He might love him in some ways, but he knows exactly what his father did to him, and what his father did to Kieran. And it seems that they were doing the same thing. Little do they know, they have tanked their kids' careers. They've tanked their kids' careers if this is false. You certainly don't. People get recasted all the time in Hollywood. All the time. Especially child actors. They grow out of the part. They start getting acne. Their voices change. They get recasted all the time. But for the mother to say, either way, I'm going to get his ass. Okay. The only show I can think of where you actually watch the kids grow up throughout the show is the show Shameless. Really? Well, I guess in Little House on the Prairie, but this show isn't like that. They got recasted. You call your agent looking for a new gig. Thanks, dude. Unless this really happened to the children.
Is making good on that promise. And to address Ms. Brandenburg-Koch's idea of, well, you don't get money from the criminal process. No, it also wasn't their first stop. They got a civil attorney first in California, who then interacted with Warner Brothers. They didn't contact police again until after Warner Brothers in September of last year came out and said, there's nothing behind these allegations. Translate, we're not going to give you any money. Then they went to police.
Okay, so they're saying at the beginning of 2024 is when this happened to the boys. And I hope it didn't. I hope it didn't. Then after the recasting, that's when the mom, after she had her abrupt losing her mind at dinner saying, I'm going to get his ass, started taking the kids to therapy, which was all about how much they can't stand their dad. We've already heard that. It's part of the court document. Then they start contacting Warner Brothers that says we're going to do our own independent investigation. I'm really not down with that, but that's how Hollywood weird is. They really don't want any publicity around something that might be going on. That's their world, not the way I jam. But anyway, they told them there's nothing here and we're not going to pay you. They were asking for almost $3 million, okay, for a lifetime of therapy for these children. Okay, they flat out said no. Then it was said back to Warner Brothers, well, then we're going to go to the police. Then they were told, well, then go to the police.
Then they went to police. There are other ways in which the complaint mischaracterizes what happened. The idea that Mr. Busfield told these kids to call him Uncle Tim. Both the independent report, Exhibit I, no one ever heard him being called Uncle Tim, except Miss Young, who said she heard Ronald Rodas say, go hug Uncle Tim. That's consistent with what you heard here from Mr. Caudillo. Exhibit N, affidavit of Joe Lotito. Never heard anyone say Uncle Tim. Exhibit BB, this one was just submitted last night. And I quote, she also said that Mr. Busfield never asked to be called Uncle Tim. And I quote from her, I also had the opportunity to observe the twin children referenced in the case and their parents, Angel and Ronnie. I observed the twins' father, Ronnie, telling his children to hug adults on set, including Mr. Busfield. I never saw Mr. Busfield initiate one of these hugs and never heard anyone call him Uncle Tim. Contrary to the allegations in the complaint, Mr. Busfield was not quote, touchy on set and instead appeared focused and professional, close quote. And finally, Exhibit O, Copper Perry, head of the hair department, same thing. Never saw anything creepy or touchy. The allegations continue to fall apart. And this is under the idea that we've already discussed a little bit, this idea that they are impossible. It's not just Exhibit I. It's not just the independent investigation, which as Ms. Brandenburg-Cope characterized as minimal. I don't know why she's using that term, considering the
Okay, I'm going to throw this out here. It might make sense. It may not. Because again, we don't know. The trial is not over. All the evidence has not been produced. B. Hartley said, yes, the parents were bad. The parents are bad. I'm going to tell you right now. They are scammers. They are con artists. They abuse their kids. I'm just going to say probably mentally abuse them. They were using them for their talents. And their only talent, according to Warner Brothers, was being a twin. They were basically stand-ins. But that doesn't mean they can't be abused. You see, when you have horrible parents, you're more of a target for a pedo. Write that down. When you are a horrible parent, your children are most likely to be abused. You know why? Because you're a bad parent and you don't give a shit. On the mother's Instagram, which I will not show because she took it down, she had many pictures on there from the set. She had one, and it's her talking. She's like, I'm not leaving here until you give Uncle Tim a kiss. Oh, you can do better than that. And now here we are. Like Susan says all the time. There's a lot going on here. And both could be right. They could have been coached and abused by the parents. And knowing that they have such shithead parents, that could have made them an easy target. Again, we don't know.
Interviewed, I believe, 9 to 12 witnesses over a several-week period and came out with a comprehensive report. I don't see how that's minimal. But in addition to that, Exhibit K, Chris Ford, that someone always had, quote, eyes on Tim Busfield because he was the director. Also said he didn't have his own trailer. This idea that he was causing trouble in his trailer. He doesn't have a trailer as the director. Exhibit L, Kristen Carr. The kids were never alone, always 20 to 30 people around. Exhibit N, Joe Lotito. Kids were never left by the set teacher. He says, and I quote, "It is inconceivable to me that the alleged conduct could have occurred on set because of the number of crew that are always around and working." Close quote. Exhibit O, Copper Perry. The boys are always accompanied by a set teacher, never alone. And this is in addition to their parents. There's set teacher, there's also their parents around. The photographs that are...
Because they weren't going to school, they were working. And so they have a set teacher. They were never alone. And that's what people keep trying to say. If they weren't working, they were having lunch, or they were with their teacher, keeping their grades up. All right, let's get to this. I think we get the gist of how horrible the parents are. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, how shady Timothy and Melissa are. This is Holly weird, man. This is Holly weird.
There is little doubt that actor Timothy Busfield is feeling a little better today than yesterday because he started his morning shackled.
What do y'all think about Jesse Weber taking Ashley Beigefield's place? Woo! He jumped from one app to another. He left Law and Crime, got the hell away from them, and he's got his own show on News Nation. Whoop, 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 whoop. B. Hartley said, and if you didn't do it, why would you pay them off? Dude, that's their world. That is their world. Money, 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 money. No one's going to go to jail for tickling someone. No one's going to go to jail for hitting a kid on the butt and say, get out there, good luck. No one's going to go to jail for that. But anything genitalia-wise, under the clothes, yeah, they will. So now it comes down to this. Did it happen or did it not? Either way, these kids are victims. Either way, these kids are victims. Hold on, Marco. I had a real bad knee thing, 3 surgeries, just saying, not complaining, missed y'all. What'd you do to your knee? I thought you gave up the NFL, Marco. Damn, Marco. Everybody give Marco an internet hug. I did not know that. 2 Boston moms. What happened to Ashley? She's got her own gig going now. She's got her own gig. She left News Nation. She's got her own podcast. Makes her own hours. Doesn't have a script. Wears other colors besides beige, and she's done with it. Probably because she hates Chris Cuomo, to be quite honest. The whole shakeup with News Nation changed with when Chris Cuomo got fired from CNN, and he came raw dogging it in there. They all got pissed.
And in an orange jumpsuit, and he ended a free man. He was allowed to await his pending child sexual abuse case free on his own recognizance, despite prosecutors' best attempt to paint Busfield as a danger to the community. The New Mexico judge cited the actor's lack of criminal history, willingness to turn himself in as reasons that the actor deserves to be free for now. Now, Busfield is accused of inappropriate conduct with twin boys that he worked with on the Fox show The Cleaning Lady, which, by the way, he adamantly denies. And today, the court heard a police interview where the boys initially denied that Busfield ever touched them. Take a listen. This clip is courtesy of TMZ.
So, you know what's right and wrong, right?
Yeah.
You know no one could touch your private areas?
Yeah, but he doesn't touch that part.
Doesn't touch your private parts? Okay. And you know what's right and wrong, right? You know where people can't touch, where people can't do. Yeah, you know that, right? Does Tim ever do that?
No, he's never touched me.
Never touched you?
Yeah.
In like, you know, your private areas, right?
Yeah.
Never did that?
Never.
Yeah.
Now, Busfield claims that the new allegations after that initial interview were made out of vengeance, after the twins were not invited back for a second season of the show, that their parents have a history of being fraudsters. So what are we seeing exactly? Well, that's why I want to bring on my guests to help talk about this. Joining me right now is Todd Spodek, criminal defense attorney who represented Anna Delvey in her 2019 trial, Meredith Feiertag, a partner at Wigdor LLP, famously.
I can tell you right now, this is a messy mess. This is a messy mess. Nothing that comes out of Holly Weird is ever cut and dry. Never. Never, never, never. No, I mean, I'm comparing apples and oranges here, but how many times did Nicole Brown Simpson call 911 on OJ? Not my cat, but OJ Simpson. And it was covered up every time. How many people have called the agent of Timothy Busfield? We know of 2 other than the twins, and they were girls that were 15, 16 years old, and a check was written for therapy. They have a different way of taking care of things, and I hate to tell them, Holly Weird, you're not your own country. You need to abide by the laws. Hence why so many of us can't stand your asses.
Represented singer Cassie Ventura in her lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs. Thank you both so much for coming on. Todd, I'll start with you. You think it was the right decision to release him because the prosecution came out strong, right? They cited past allegations of sexual assault. We know that it took several days for Busfield to turn himself in after there was an arrest warrant. There were, you have the allegations of these 2 children. Your thoughts?
Jesse, I think the judge did the right thing. He's balancing 2 things, right? One is a danger to the community, and 2 is whether he's going to come back to court to face these charges. He has no history whatsoever. He surrendered himself when he needed to. He has support of the community, friends, and family. He has the resources to post bail if need be. And at the end of the day, as the evidence shown so far, the story is not exactly perfect.
It's not black and white. It's a little gray, but I will tell you, Meredith, this audio is interesting. I look at it 2 ways, right? One, you could say, well, at first they don't even mention that anything sexual happened. Maybe this is not true. Maybe they're making it up. The other way of looking at it is how many times have we seen cases of sexual abuse, whether it's a child or whether it's an adult? There are very complicated reasons why people don't admit what happened to them. And maybe it does take a therapist. Maybe it does take a doctor for them to come forward. That tape's going to be important.
That's right, Jesse. I absolutely agree. In cases of sexual assault, delayed.
Okay, now remember, we heard two questions. That was it. We heard the detective say, now you know it's wrong for anyone to touch you in these areas. These interviews are much, much longer. So while it seems to us, because when I first heard it, I was like, oh, hold on. You don't start a conversation that way with the kid. But remember, these are long conversations. They worked up to that.
Incomplete reporting is very common because people are afraid. People feel guilty. They feel ashamed. And reporting and going through the justice system with a very sensitive allegation like this is very difficult. So while at first they said that nothing happened, my understanding is later they, after seeking therapy, were able to come forward with the allegations. And I think that context will play out in court for the jury.
Todd, do you think that this is a case of vengeance, or do you think there's something more here? What's your take?
Obviously, my take is going to be of a criminal defense attorney, and I think the family has a motive here. Okay, these kids were rejected from participating in another show, and they have a reason to bring these allegations forward. And you heard the tape where the kids 100% denied any sexual interaction whatsoever.
Weren't they very descriptive in their explanations of what happened? I mean, one child, I mean, they didn't admit things that they didn't say happened, and the child was very specific about what he claims happened to him.
But the science goes both ways. There's science that says sometimes children don't give the complete picture, but there's also science that says that talking about it enough and motivation by parents and external factors could increase what the kids say.
Meredith, over to you. There was an independent investigation that was ordered by Warner Brothers. A law firm was, there. They basically said there was no corroborating evidence. The prosecution say it was not thorough. Your take on it?
Right. Well, we all know, I'm also an employment lawyer, that corporations hire outside investigators to conduct investigations that aren't thorough, that aren't neutral, that are biased in favor of the company. So I don't think that the lawyer-driven report by Warner Brothers is going to be probative one way or the other.
B. Hurley. So because something happened, maybe they were rejected because of the inappropriate touching. Maybe the mother brought it up and they fired the kids. I thought that at first too. I thought maybe it's reverse vengeance, that she complained. But according to her, and according to her testimony to Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers, that's not how it happened. It seemed like everything steamrolled when they got recasted. They weren't fired, they were recasted. And they were still employable by Warner Brothers for another project, but they couldn't use them for that one. I thought about the reverse vengeance too.
I think the evidence has to come out at trial.
From a criminal perspective, do any of the past allegations against Timothy Busfield, never matured into criminal charges, did they make their way in this trial?
No, I don't think so. They're highly prejudicial, and I don't think they provide any probative value. I think the judge would not allow that.
Is there a lawsuit? Can they sue Timothy Busfield despite the criminal case?
Yes.
That's what should happen. Okay? The parents should file a civil suit. Hell, how long have we been waiting in New Mexico for Alexi Treviso to go to court? A long time. They should file a civil suit and get it out of the way because, again, the parents requested money from Warner Brothers. Go ahead and file a civil suit, and then it will make the criminal trial much easier. Much easier. B. Hurley. So they were recasted. What would the vengeance be then? because they hadn't been recasted yet. They just couldn't be casted on that show. Either way, she's the one that was mad and said she's going to get his ass. And she didn't mention anything about this. But she should file a lawsuit. File a civil lawsuit against Warner Brothers and against Timothy Busfield. Hell, sue Melissa Gilbert too. The problem is she tried it before and nobody would take her case because of the conflicting stories from the kids. Some ambulance chaser will take it. I'm telling you, somebody will. Because they know there's money there.
They will?
I couldn't speak for them. They certainly do have a civil lawsuit as well, but that might be stayed pending the pendency of the criminal case.
All right, guys. Todd Spodek, Meredith Fire Talk, thank you for sticking around. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe.
Okay, I'll tell you what, old TMZ, they were rolling yesterday. Woo! They're the ones that released the video of Timothy making his 2,000-mile sojourn, even though he had a free ride from the U.S. Marshals. I can smell guilt and stink on each side. Okay? U.S. Marshals bust into him and Melissa's house in the Catskills. He acts like he can't get on a plane. Like LaGuardia is filled up, Syracuse, JFK, Newark, Baltimore, but he decides to get in his car and drive to Albuquerque to turn himself in. You don't need a car in jail, dude. So, I mean, where's the car? Is he driving back now? And then he gets to Albuquerque and he takes a video, gives it to TMZ, and they put it up.
Huge victory for Timothy Busfield today, and an enormous loss and even embarrassment for prosecutors in Busfield's child abuse case. You know that Busfield has been held without bail for about 5 days after being charged with sexual abuse involving 2 young kids who were actors on the set of The Cleaning Lady. Busfield held without bail, but today there was a
They don't need the money. They don't need any money to sue Warner Brothers or Timothy Busfield. You see, it's called a contingency attorney, and they will file everything, and they take 40% of what they get. And they have tried this. They tried this before going to the police. Either way, their poor money management, OJ, get out of my plant. They're scamming, they're frauding, their DOJ records does not make it where their kids are open targets to be abused. Doesn't make it that way. Sorry. And what a shit life these kids have had if everything is true. It is true about the parents because we have the court records. I mean, they are fraudsters. They are scamsters. But I mean, imagine them being the cash cows for their parents, and on top of that, they're abused on top of it. But because the parents are bad doesn't mean the abuse didn't happen. That's why we have to wait for the discovery, the evidence, and the trial.
hearing on why that should stick. And the judge said, no way should this stick. The defense lawyer, the lawyer for Busfield, went line by line through the complaint and just started picking it apart, basically saying that this is a case involving revenge by parents who were angry that their kids were fired from the last season of The Cleaning Lady. To support the argument,
recasted, Warner Brothers did not fire them. They said, contact your agent, and then they could audition for other parts. The problem is they were so backwards in the payroll advances that they needed more work to catch them up on what they owed Warner Brothers.
the defense played for the judge an audio we first obtained involving one of the kids talking to the police. And even before the policeman asked, did Timothy Busfield touch you inappropriately? The child jumped in, even before the question was asked, and said, he never touched me inappropriately. Well, that is significant evidence, and the judge heard it. And that was then buttressed by something that the prosecutor had even put in her complaint, that one of the actresses on the set said that the mother of these two boys told her that if her kids were fired, she vowed revenge against Timothy Busfield. So there was a lot more.
And that's her sworn affidavit from before the charges were filed. I don't know what's going on. I really don't. And I don't understand why Warner Brothers didn't just pay the family, since their independent investigation said none of this happened. That the children denied it. He passed the polygraph. The kids passed the polygraph when they said nothing happened. I don't know why they didn't just go ahead and pay him to get it off their tray. I really don't know.
That went on, but this defense lawyer just picked apart all of the allegations that the prosecutor had made, trying to suggest that he was a danger to the community. Another thing that the defense lawyer said was that Timothy Busfield was never alone with these children, and the people who regularly were around never saw anything untoward with Timothy Busfield and the kids. Melissa Gilbert, Timothy Busfield's wife, was in court. She was crying as the judge said not only would he release Timothy Busfield, but he would release him without any bail.
That in itself is a shocker. To have those type of charges against children that you employed through your studio to let you out with absolutely zero security makes me wonder what the hell is really going on here. What is really going on here? What is going on? And in these cases, it's the children that suffer. And as this goes on, it can go any which way but loose. I'm telling you, it's either going to be Timothy did this, but the parents could catch some charges too. Because you cannot tell me, as a parent, you're not a mandated reporter. Jenny, what would you do if your child told you that they had been molested by somebody they worked for? Would you go to therapy or call the police? Or both? B. Harley, what would you do? If your child said, this man touched my privates, would you call the police, get a therapist, or both? They dicked around with this for a good 10 months. And once every door was shut to them, then they called the police. Now, the SAG union has said no child is ever left alone with an adult. Well, I trust that about as far as I can throw myself, okay? I don't trust these freakos, okay? I love when they have their award shows and they get there and go, oh, I just wish everybody would just get along. I mean, just thank everybody for your fucking award and get the fuck out of here. Just shut up. Quit telling us how to act. Get out of here. They love that shit. Talking about the ozone and shit. I'm like, just get your fucking award and go.
That he is released on his own recognizance pending trial. Now, this does not mean that Timothy Busfield is in the clear. He is still the defendant in a child sexual abuse case, and that is serious. But if this is any bellwether where the judge went from no bail to releasing him without any bail, the judge at least seemed unimpressed with what the prosecutors have brought to the table, at least so far. Now, I think it's relevant. This is in Albuquerque. different from the Alec Baldwin Rust case that was in Santa Fe. But the Alec Baldwin case completely collapsed.
Completely collapsed. And by the way, some people see it a different way. Either way, Alec Baldwin was guilty. You know why? Anybody want to know why? Because he didn't even check what he had in his hand, and he shot and killed that woman. And the whole case fell apart. If somebody gives me a play gun and I'm like, oh, really? Feels kind of heavy to me. Ha, 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 ha. And I shoot across the street and I shoot Linda. Guess what? I'm guilty. But the state of New Mexico is really, really, really wanting the entertainment business there. Do not be surprised if this doesn't fall apart. Don't be surprised. Because there is a big studio there. And if they give Warner Brothers, which is bigger than the fucking White House, if the courts there give them any hell, Warner Brothers will pull out.
And ultimately, the judge found there was prosecutorial misconduct and dismissed the case outright. And it was a huge embarrassment for Santa Fe prosecutors. I am not saying the same thing is going to happen with Timothy Busfield because it is premature. We haven't heard the trial. A trial is very different from what we heard now. But what we heard now is relevant because if the prosecutor is painting Timothy Busfield as this kind of danger to society so that he shouldn't ever get out until the trial runs its course, the judge didn't buy that at all, did the exact opposite today. So if this case were to collapse the way the Rust case collapsed, this is bad for New Mexico. And I realize there are two different jurisdictions, but people don't parse it that way. And that was a huge high-profile case in Santa Fe. This is a huge, huge case in Albuquerque. So it remains to be seen what happens. But today was an enormous defeat for prosecutors and a big victory for Timothy Busfield.
And that's the truth. And that is the truth. Because the court could have asked for $1 million cash to make sure he comes back. They could ask for, see, what's the cap in New Mexico? I read it yesterday. I think 5 million is the cap. No, $1 million for this crime. For this crime he's accused of. They could ask for $1 million cash. Does he have it? Sure. Is it in his wallet? No. 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 Every studio is done with him. He's still going to get royalties from 30-something. I mean, I don't know who the hell binges and watches that all the time. I guess it's somewhere, maybe on TV land here and there. Of course, she still gets her money from Little House on the Prairie. I mean, it'll get sorted out one way or another. I want these kids to get help. Chrissy said Brooks can talk about me on her show. Come on up, Chrissy. Come on up. DT Driver said they have to weigh out whether or not they can fight these celebrities in court with deep pockets. That's another thing. Thank you for bringing that up. You see, when you get a rich client, they're going to have their own experts. They're going to have their own razzle-dazzle, and they can outspend the... Thank you for doing that, OJ. Thank you. You just knocked Alexa down. Alexa, are you okay?
I'm doing great. Thanks for checking. Just here, processing requests and trying not to overthink the meaning of existence. You know, typical Tuesday stuff.
Well, I'm sorry OJ knocked you off. OJ, you did that shit. Okay, so they have to really weigh it out because let's look at the OJ Simpson trial. He way outspent the state of California. That's it. You know what I'm talking about? Lots going to come up. A lot's going to come up. All right, we're going to be back here in roughly an hour and a half because we got an update on the case of Ryan R.J. Davis out of Oklahoma. Looks like his stepfather officially checked into hell. So I will see you guys back here in roughly an hour and a half. Don't hurt my feelings and not be there. Me love you a long time. Thank you for everything.
Superhero.